Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now remember, if you haven't subscribed already, you can hit that subscribe button down below to make sure that you keep up to date with those videos on teaching, writing and leadership. And there's a notification bell as well, which you can hit in order that you are notified when or any video comes out. So today's video is all about writing. I know it's been a while since I've posted a video, and particularly one about writing. That's because I've been really involved in the writing process myself. I've been putting the final touches to my children's book aimed at 4 to 6 year olds called Mervyn the Magic Martian Visits Earth. It's getting ready for publication. It's going to be published by Chatham House and will be available on Amazon as well as in other retail outlets, and I'm going to feature it on my soon to be launched website. It's the first in a series of picture books for ages 4 to 6 centered around Mervyn the Magic Martian, so look out for that book. Remember, any books that I cite are going to be linked in the description below. Now, the topic of Mervyn the Magic Martian and the plot around which it's structured is the very topic that we're going to be discussing today. We're moving on to plot number 3 according to Christopher Booker in his 7 basic plots. So let's discuss what plot number 3 is. If you haven't looked at the videos that I did before on plots number 1 and 2, then make sure you look at those because they help you in knowing the sorts of plots that winning writers have used over time and that have sold books and also become films. So we covered plot number 1, if you remember, that was the Overcoming the Monster, and plot number 2, which was Rags to Riches. Today we're moving on to plot number 3. And plot number 3 is what Christopher Booker terms the quest. And as the term suggests, it's all about a journey. So in a quest, there's a main character, the protagonist, who has a call to action. Just as we saw in the Overcoming the Monster and the Rags to Riches, there is a call to action. And in this case, the protagonist is called to action and goes on some kind of journey to locate what is seen as some kind of prize at the end, or to find a destination, to go to a destination. So essentially, a quest is a journey that the main character goes on in order to reach some final destination or to attain some kind of prize at the end. Now, you may know of some famous quests. They might spring to mind immediately. One that springs to mind immediately for me is The Lord of the Rings. Now, that's a very famous book by J.R. Tolkien, made into an epic film made up of multiple parts because it was a trilogy, and followed on from The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. And in it we have the character of Frodo, who is presented with a ring, and he's then told by Gandalf that it is a very special ring that used to belong to dark evil force, and he must remove it from the Shire. And essentially the first book is all about him journeying in order to remove the ring from the Shire. So Lord of the Rings is based on the idea of a quest, a journey that the characters go on. And in this case, it's the hobbits and Frodo who goes on that journey. Another book that falls under this category of a quest is the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows book. Now in this you have Ron, Harry and Hermione. Without their professor's guidance or protection, they go on a journey, on a quest to seek out the Horcruxes, the source of Voldemort's immortality. And the question is whether they're going to survive. So this is their journey, their quest. So in the same way as we said with Lord of the Rings, we have this kind of journey involved in a quest. Other famous plots that follow the quest structure are the Indiana Jones stories. You may be familiar with those. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones always sets out on some journey, either to retrieve some jewel or something, or to try and rescue somebody. So there's a quest involved in his plots. You also have the Wizard of Oz. Now, it has elements of Overcoming the Monster, but it definitely has because you've got the Wicked Witch and you've got her being the nemesis of Dorothy. But the main thing with that plot in The Wizard of Oz is that Dorothy wants to get home. So there's the quest. She's on a journey and she has to meet a number of people, including the Wizard of Oz, before she can actually get home. So The Wizard of Oz is really built around more of a quest. In actual fact, the children's book that I've just written follows a sort of quest because it's all about Mervyn the Magic Martian visiting Earth. So similar to these other writers, I've drawn on that particular plot line in writing my children's book. It's in a very simplified format, but it follows the idea of a journey. So now we've defined what the third plot according to Christopher Booker is. It is the quest where main characters seek out some kind of prize, or they're aiming to get to some final destination and therefore take part in a journey. We're going to look at how, according to Christopher Booker, writers over time have structured this particular plot. Now, similar to what he said about the Overcoming the Monster and Rags to Riches plots, he says that writers divide this plot, the quest plot, into 5 distinct stages. So we're going to look at what those 5 distinct stages are according to Christopher Booker. Okay, so let's look at the structure of the quest according to Christopher Booker. Now remember, this is plot 3 out of the 7 basic plots. It comes after the plot that we discussed last time, which was the Rags to Riches. Now, like Rags to Riches and the Overcoming the Monster plot, this plot for the quest is broken into 5 distinct stages according to Christopher Booker. And as with the other 2, it starts with what he describes as the call. So the hero has a call to action which kickstarts the plot and allows the hero and his companions to start their mission or their quest. That is the first stage, the call. The second stage is what Christopher Booker calls the journey. Now, if we think about the example that I gave you previously, which was from The Lord of the Rings, we have the call where Frodo discovers he must destroy the Ring of Power to stop Sauron. And then we move on to the journey where the hero sets out on a journey. But during that journey, of course, he encounters difficulties. So with his fellowship, Frodo embarks on a journey through Middle-earth. That's the journey he's undertaking. And if we think about Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, then her journey is such that she meets up with the Tin Man, the Lion, and so on. Now, the journey often takes place across some kind of hostile land or enemy territory. There are a lot of obstacles that the hero or heroes have to encounter. Things like temptations, maybe some monsters, a difficult terrain that they have to overcome. Now, amid all of this, there are tests that come until the party can regain its strength, and then they continue on the journey. So that is the second stage in the plot of the quest, before we move on to what Christopher Booker calls arrival and frustration, which is stage 3. So if we think about The Lord of the Rings, this is where we have Frodo being pursued by the ring wraiths and orcs. He struggles to Mount Doom. So that is stage 3 for him, arrival and frustration. If you think about The Wizard of Oz, we've got the heroes there. They can see the Emerald City. They're almost there, but unfortunately the wizard says that he can't help them to get Toto back and to get back to Kansas, or to help the Tin Man get a heart and so on, until they kill the Wicked Witch of the West. So they're so close, but they have some kind of frustration. That's the arrival and frustration stage, which is stage 3. The final ordeals is what Christopher Booker calls stage 4, and that is when the hero faces his final or her final test. And that might be an amazing escape from death, or another example, if you think of The Lord of the Rings, the fact that he has to destroy the ring. Frodo has to destroy the ring in order to complete his mission. So we can see that now we have reached the final ordeal before we get to stage 5, which Christopher Booker calls the goal. So the mission has been accomplished, the quest has been achieved. And if you think about the Lord of the Rings, that's when peace is restored to Middle Earth. And of course, when in The Wizard of Oz, we have Dorothy able then to return to Kansas, and she has her dog Toto. So now you have a clear outline about the 5 stages according to Christopher Booker for the quest. It is the call, which is number 1. The journey is the 2nd stage. Arrival and frustration is stage 3. The final ordeals is stage 4 before the goal, stage 5. Let's look at how these would fit in then to the traditional story arc that we have looked at previously. For ease, I'm going to be referring to Sid Field's story paradigm, which is split into the 3 acts. If you recall, we've got the 3 acts, the setup, the confrontation and the resolution, within which we have the inciting incident, plot point 1, midpoint 1, plot point 2, and then you've got the climax before we get down to the resolution. And this is linked to Gustav Freytag's pyramid, if you remember as well. Okay, if you haven't watched those videos where I explain story structure, then make sure that you look at those to help you understand what I'm going to be referring to now. So when we consider the 5-stage structure for the quest, we can place the call to action which the hero receives, the 1st stage, at the beginning in Act 1. That would probably fall into the inciting incident. And then if we consider stage 2, according to Christopher Booker in the quest, we have the journey, and that would seem to fall into Act 2, confrontation, or the rising action in the traditional story arc. That would probably be in that section, the confrontation, perhaps midpoint of Act 2. And then if we look at the next stage, which is the arrival and frustration stage before the final ordeal, that would probably fall into the plot point 2, before we have the final ordeal, which seems to naturally be the climax in Act 3, and then we have the end goal, which is, or the goal as Christopher Booker terms it, and that's right at the end in the traditional story arc, the denouement. So hopefully that's made clear the way in which the 5 stages can fit into the traditional story arc using Sid Field's story paradigm as a model. Hopefully that's been useful for you. Let's now turn back and summarise what we've covered. So hopefully now you've got a clear idea about the 3rd basic plot according to Christopher Booker. It's a winning plot that has sold books and been made into multi-million pound and dollar grossing films. So this is a plot that you can use yourself. It's the quest built around a hero or heroes and his or her companions moving on a journey to attain some kind of prize or reach a destination. Remember, it's broken into those 5 stages. Similar to the 2 previous other plots, it's got those 5 stages. In this case, with the quest, you've got the call, the journey, arrival and frustration, the final ordeal, and the goal. So perhaps you can use this sort of plot in your own writing the same way that I did with Mervyn and the Magic Martian. Okay, now next time we'll be moving on to plot number 4 according to Christopher Booker, and we'll also be looking at some other aspects of writing. In particular, I'm going to feature some videos on the writing process, my writing process, as well as other writers' processes, and about the publication, marketing, sales process as well. So tune in for those videos. Make sure, if you haven't already done so, that you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to keep up to date with videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found it useful and look forward to seeing you next time.